Hello world and welcome back to Forloop. I'm Teja
And I'm Abhishek.
and this is the start of our new series that we're calling Inside Meevoo. In this series, we'll be building, launching and hopefully scaling Meevoo.
Yeah.
What's Meevoo though?
So it is a web app which lets you review everything.
What do you mean by everything?
Everything, man. Literally everything. Books, movies, food, games, restaurants, trips, cars, everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Articles maybe?
Everything. Quotes.
There you go.
You can
Good.
think of anything and it lets you review everything.
Cool. So it's essentially, to put it simply, we're trying to build a user-centric reviewing platform. So sort of like a platform where you'll be able to curate your taste, unlike sites like IMDb, Amazon, TripAdvisor, etc. So like the idea is not to build a business around one thing and allow you to review stuff related about that thing, right? Like for example, IMDb is in movies business. You review movies on IMDb. We are in the business of allowing you to curate and publish your taste, right?
Yep.
Um,
So we're thinking of creating we two are really heavy and really big fans of how simple Medium is, the UX of it, the user experience. It is so simple. It lets the articles even simpler. So that's the idea about Meevoo too. We are going to create a really nice UX so that the users on the application have fun and it'll be really simple. Everything is really accessible. So that's the plan about Meevoo. Also, when I said that it lets you review everything, think about how powerful of a recommendation system we can create from it, right? You might have gotten to IMDb for your reviews or an application which lets you, which recommends you movies. Even Netflix recommends you movies based upon your previous likes, dislikes, and reviews. But they're just recommending you movies based upon the data, all the metrics they have about the movies, right? In the past, you have reviewed. But Meevoo isn't like that. When I said that it lets you review everything, we can really, really recommend you movies based upon the taste, based upon your taste of books or games, right? So it is kind of a cross-domain recommendation system, which is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, for example, like Abhishek just said, we'll be able to look at, maybe you like these sort of books. Maybe you should give this dish a try because a lot of people seem to be enjoying that recipe.
Absolutely.
Sky's the limit, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've described what Meevoo is a bit, let's talk about what we are going to do and what you, as our beloved audience, are going to get out of this.
Yep.
Um,
So we're going to share all of our progress and all of our learning with you in the series. All the decisions, whether they're technical, functional, non-functional, out of the box, every little decision we are going to, share it with you on this platform.
Yeah. So I think we also need to do some learning with the marketing and how the other side of the world looks, how the side of the world outside of engineering looks like. So we're planning to learn them, and we're planning to learn it with you, right? So if you learn something interesting, something we're going to do some way, or like maybe there's something really interesting we discover, we make a quick video about it and make it part of the series or anything. So essentially, we're going to talk about everything we learn, all the decisions we take while building this product. So if you are trying to get a sneak peek into product building and product lifecycle, this is probably going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a product and launch it. Right?
Correct. What we are here for is that we try to show you how what software engineering looks like, and not in the hardcore coding manner, nothing like that. Also, if some of you are interested in our code as well, we are going to make it completely open source. So there is no cap on, looking at our code and what exactly we are doing behind the scenes. We're just not going to put in all of that in the lectures. That's it. The lectures are not for that. Oh, I said lectures, so
Yeah, it's not lectures. Let's be honest. Yeah,
yeah, these are not lectures,
yes.
not at all.
Because what's the last time you attended a lecture, man? Yep.
2015.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. The idea is to give you a high level journey of what this looks like because we intend to go on that journey ourselves, right?
Correct. Yes.
Putting that aside, let's talk about a quick plan, right? Like how we're going to
Yeah.
build this and what our priorities are going to be. To me and to us collectively, the priority is going to be validating this idea first, right? We want to see if the idea is even worth pursuing, and we can only do that by getting something into your hands and getting feedback from you, right?
Correct.
Um,
So yeah. Basically, every guy who's trying to start an application, trying to do a startup, every entrepreneur, at really initial stages, these guys stuck in a loop of thinking about, how can I make it scalable? What if a million users starts to use my app? And they are really far away from all the users. The application is not even started. So we are not going to do that. We are going to keep it like really simple. We are going to create an MVP out of it. That's the first goal. That's the plan we are moving forward with. We are not going to talk about any non-functional aspects of it. No requirements such like that. And I'm pretty sure that this is not an Amazon or a Microsoft interview where we talk about, what if a million users
Yeah.
uses our app and how we can load balance all of that stuff. That's what we're going to do later. Also, yeah,
That's
the
for-
recommendation. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that's for when we get the huge $60 million investment and some
Yeah.
cash infusion.
Correct. That happens after we go to Shark Tank India and then a lot of
And also right before we order our first yacht. That's when
Correct.
we plan to do that. Yeah.
Correct. And we really have to work like 90 hours a week to get this moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway. So I was talking about the recommendation system, right? After a really simple MVP, we are going to push the recommendation system a little bit further because that's yet to come. The first things first is like what Meevoo at its core is. We're going to build that.
Yeah. So boiling it down, we're going to build an MVP first because we want to see if you like the MVP.
Yeah.
Putting the plan aside, let's talk about the tech stack. The very first thing, arguably the most interesting thing for us as engineers, but who knows, let's start the conversation with talking about our constraints.
Yeah.
So while choosing the tools we are going to use to build Meevoo, there are a couple of things we want to take into consideration, and 3 of them are dev speed. So yeah, going along the same vein as we were speaking earlier, we want to build this fast and we want to get this out of the door even faster. So we want to pick this set of tools which lets us build fast, and
Correct. And as we've already, talked about this, a really good UX. That's a constraint. And are you forgetting something? Did you write dev speed? Oh, there it is. Okay.
dev speed.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've got our complex constraints out of the way, let's talk about our options for the backend technology.
Great.
There are a whole bunch of them. We list 5 of them here, but there are like probably a couple of hundred more somewhere. Let's start with Hono. Hono is like a relatively new Node.js and JavaScript backend library. If you've used Express before, it is sort of like that. It's just a router. That's it. Like Hono is just a router and nothing else.
Correct. And there are no built-in functionalities which you might get in other backend options. Like there is no built-in support for auth or DB or ORMs, nothing like that. So the build process is really slow because you need to work with a lot of libraries to get all of this stuff moving. But it is really fast and like really performant. That's we have to give it to Hono for that.
Yeah. So again, if you have used Hono before and if you have got a list of your favorite tools that work together, maybe pick Hono. Otherwise, it's just going to be a lot of hassle to put things together and bending them in such a way to make them work. It is fast, but it comes at its cost.
Correct.
The next option we're looking at is Next.js for backend as well. Again, it is a TypeScript and Node.js framework, much like Hono, and it also sort of happens to suffer from the same issues as Hono for the most part. It does not have many things built in, literally just a router. You got to figure out how you want to do your database, your caching, your auth, your security stuff, everything.
Correct.
Um,
But if we compare this with Hono is like much faster than Next.js. But some things to give to Next.js is that if frontends and backends are both in Next.js, it makes our dev process a little bit faster.
yeah. Uh, but again, it comes at its own cost. So.
Correct.
The third option is Django.
Yeah.
Django is a web framework that uses Python. Django has a really, really big ecosystem. It comes with auth, it comes with database stuff, migrations, background tasks, security modules, all of that built in. Like you probably need to like run one command and you'll get most of the project set up already for you with everything built out of the box already. So, but like one thing about Django and like Python in general is performance of a single process of Python is not that high. In fact, I would call it one of the lower performing web frameworks. But again, you can always like scale it horizontally. Plus, we don't really care about scaling right now. So,
Correct. And while we're talking about Django, we really want to mention a framework called Django Ninja. So if any of you guys have worked with DRF or Django REST frameworks, they know that you can also build REST APIs with Django, and Django Ninja makes it really performant and makes it really easier, plus a lot of out of the box features it provides, right?
yeah.
Also, Django gives you a really nice looking Django admin, which you can which we might show you later in these videos, but you do not have to work your way through creating yet another application of your controlling all of these admin things, databases and everything, because it already is aware of all the databases and they have built-in functionality where it lets you work with databases in its core. So it already knows about all of your schemas, so it automatically creates a Django admin site for you, so you don't have to.
Right. So it's like imagine Django admin is like a super dashboard. Like everything about all the records will be available from like our admin panel that Django generates for you automatically. Also, Django has a really, really nice and huge ecosystem where you if you need anything, you can probably just find a plugin for Django. For example, if you want to integrate Stripe or like payment system, that's probably like a 3-line integration. Whereas it would take you like a whole couple of days to build it with Hono or Express or like any of those options. Plus, because we want to do recommendations eventually, it's a good idea to use Python because a lot of these machine learning like workloads have really great ecosystem in the Python world. Yeah.
Correct. Also, so just to break it to you guys, we are going to use Django for our backend option, but we'll still cover the rest of the options. So let me try to explain you a little bit about Nest.js. It is like Django, but with Node and TypeScript, right? And it's sort of like Angular for backend, the Nest.js.
Yeah. Like you said, it does come with a lot of things out of the box. Like it has some way to do database stuff out of the box, a way to do logging out of the box. But it has too much boilerplate. Like, and it while it supports a lot of things, it's not as flexible as you like it to be. I mean, but like to be fair, I've used it like I've tried to use it like a year and a half ago, and it didn't really go well. So maybe my bias is coming from there, but yeah, it sounds like it wants to be like Django. It wants to give you everything out of the box, but it's not quite there yet. So yeah, the next option is Laravel. It's a framework in PHP. It's getting very popular these days. They raised a whole bunch of funding to build an open source web framework. Imagine that.
Right.
It also has auth and like all the database stuff built in. Apparently, it's a breeze to use as well, even though it's PHP. And like, fun fact, PHP now has great performance, like
Right.
but better than Python in some cases. It's not as bad as you like to think.
Right.
But I don't think either of us knows PHP, and it's not something we're keen on learning. So Django it is. Now let's talk about the front-end options. Speaking about our front-end options, the first option we have is Angular.
Yeah. So Angular is a framework which initially has been put up by Google. There are a lot of things which you cannot do with Angular. Like, for example, I can give you like there is no good way to do async data loading, and you have to write separate HTML and separate JavaScript, some of that. But yeah, if you want to work with like really large teams and large applications, Angular is the way to go.
Yeah. It's opinionated. Like Angular gives you, like, if you want to do something, if you want to do like dependency injection or something, Angular has a way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to use the Angular way of doing it, right? It's sort of inflexible in some way, right? And it has too much boilerplate, which is like the worst of both the worlds, right? Like if I'm writing boilerplate, at least let me configure things. And yeah, like you mentioned, there's just no. The one thing I hate about Angular is there's no good way to do async data loading.
Correct.
Like if you want to show a loading spinner when you're loading an API, there's just no good way to show that. Like you'll have to hack your own way to do it.
Correct.
The ecosystem is also not that big, by the way. Like if you want to find component libraries, if you want to find like nice little libraries for charts, etc., it is there, but it's not as polished as you like it to be, or like as flashy as you like it to be, for the lack of a better word. But yeah. The next option we have is React. React's a library from Facebook. Sorry. Unlike Angular, React is a library. It's not a framework. So React is a very small part of your app. It just gives you the way to say like, when this happens, change what's displayed on my screen. That's it. Like it gives you a way to wire up events in your application, and that's enough really. It also happens to be a really mature library. I think it's been around for like a decade now, and it's really flexible. Just lets you build things in a fun, simple way, no boilerplate whatsoever.
Correct. And I think React has a much larger, like much bigger ecosystem than Angular. And he talked about working with UI component libraries. Like, what if you want to include charts and progress bars and stuff like that in your application? I think React has an awesome, the dependencies like are out there. There are a lot of options for React, and there are really nice libraries for data loading, forms, everything.
You must have noticed that we're fans of React already. But if you don't, the next option we have is Svelte. Svelte is React. Sorry, Svelte is a web framework from a guy called Rich Harris. It is a bit more performant than React. It compiles. It does a bunch of like internal trickery to remove a whole bunch of things that React has to do, and it does it at compile time. So it is more that leads it to be a little more performant than React, but it comes at a cost of like not having an ecosystem, or at least a large ecosystem. You pretty much have to figure things out for your mostly for yourself. I might be wrong. I've tried to use it like I think 6-7 months ago, but I don't think a large ecosystem could have come up in the last 6 months. So
yeah. Also, a lot of you people might have not even heard about Svelte, so it already tells you about how famous it is. So that's when it comes to the ecosystem. When you actually start to build the application, it might be performant, but you have to work your way through while building the components.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that it's not nice or anything, though, right? I really
Yeah.
like the ideas in Svelte, but it won't let us be fast.
Correct.
So yeah,
And
probably
you
not an
remember
option
our
for today.
constraints, right?
Dev speed, dev speed, dev speed.
Correct.
Did I miss anything? Was there a fourth dev speed? I'm sorry. um, so yeah, not for today. Maybe we'll end up making a series about that a couple of months down the line. But yeah.
Mhm.
Then there's Next.js.
Correct.
Uh,
This is from Vercel. There is this company called Vercel, and it is also okay. So Next.js is another library which is built on top of React only, but it does include some features, which makes it a little different from all the other client side libraries or frameworks. So they have added the concept of server side rendering in Next.js. Yeah. So usually what happens with React and Angular is that server sends you different kinds of files, HTML, JavaScript, and then the client, your browser, stitches it all together to show you a web page, right? All of this stuff happens on the server when you're working with Next.js. So you do not really need a JavaScript enabled browser to work with Next.js because everything is happening on Next.js and it's just passing the entire web page to you directly. Also,
Yeah, one thing
sorry.
I'll add something there. So if you build your app with simple React, because of the lack of server-side rendering, like Abhishek just mentioned, you'll have a really hard time showing up in your Google results, right? Because Google can't
Right.
read what's in the web page. If you're using Next.js, you get to still use React, but you also get the additional benefit of showing up in Google search results.
Correct.
And
So it
end of my
lets
interruption.
correct, and it lets Google find it on the indexes, and it is really nice when it comes to SEOs. It gives you out of the box. You don't have to work manually to get that on Google searches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it handles like routing and building and caching all of that really well, and that's it. It supports the server side rendering.
Cool. So yeah, you'll have to figure routing and all this stuff yourselves if you use React. But Next.js just gives you all of those things out of the box. So.
Correct.
The next options we have here are Solid.js and Vue. Again, Vue is relatively more popular than Solid.js, but they're like Vue.js is mature. It has like great ecosystem as well. We've never used it, so probably not the option for now. But it is really awesome. It lets you do incremental adoption of Vue. Like there are a whole bunch of things. It has a non-VDOM mode, which lets it be faster in some cases. Solid.js is sort of like React, but it tries to use signals instead of hooks, so there's some technical difference there. But it lacks from the lack of an ecosystem. So it lacks an ecosystem. So maybe not for today as well.
We are sticking with Next.js for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Next.js because it's fast and React is flexible and has a great ecosystem. So
Yeah.
Next.js it is. Let's go to the database options. We'll start with Mongo. If you were around in the tech scene in 2015, 2016, you very definitely heard of NoSQL, MongoDB, and essentially MongoDB was the most popular NoSQL database. So MongoDB is what's called a NoSQL database because it doesn't have, first of all, it doesn't use SQL. It's a database, but it's not SQL. It has its own custom query language. One other feature that it has is it's schemaless. So you don't have to tell Mongo how your data is going to look like, right? You just give it your data with any fields, any shape, and it'll just take that data and store it, right?
Great. So yeah, as Teja mentioned, that this is not your traditional relational database. So if you're working with, let's say, unstructured data and you do not have a fine schema defined for your use case, you might go with Mongo. Also, because we have chosen Django as a backend, it supports Mongo, but not as good as all the other relational database options. So yeah, this is a good options for insert heavy operations, but it lets your query time gets like
Yeah.
really slow.
Yes, like I mean, not all query,
Yeah, the
not
complex
all
ones,
queries are
the
slow.
complex
Yeah,
ones, the complex queries. I'm sorry, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So not a huge fan of Mongo personally speaking, because
Hmm.
schema is nice. Like having a well defined structure of what you're going to store will prevent you from making mistakes in the future. So it's a good idea to prevent or like not abuse Mongo for its schemaless behavior anyway.
Okay.
Um, the next option we have here is Postgres. Postgres is what you call an RDBMS or Relational Database Management System, I think.
Okay.
Um, it is one of the most popular RDBMS systems we have these days. It uses SQL. Pretty much almost all RDBMS systems use SQL, and Postgres is the same. Um,
Correct.
yeah,
And the performance is like really awesome when you're working with Postgres. It is scalable while sharing and then for
Sean.
its
Yeah.
read-only replica, sorry, sharding and the read-only replica. And it has extensions for like time scale.
Oh yeah.
So it creates your DB a time scale DB, which works with timestamps and stuff. And also there's an extension called PG, like for PG vectors, which turns your database into a vector database where you can store all the information, and it kind of works like a machine learning algorithm when you query it, right?
Yeah.
So like yeah, it's a really awesome relational database management system.
Yeah. I mean, again, emphasizing the extension thing that you just mentioned, Abhishek, like it is really awesome in the sense that it lets you use some tables which are time series using like something like time scale. Like if you want to do like drag based AI, like if you have LLM and you want to do some
Hmm.
sort of retrieval augmentation and stuff like that, you can just use PG vector without having to
Correct.
start whole another database, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, Postgres is awesome. Uh, the next option is MySQL. MySQL also is an RDBMS. It was
Yeah.
really, really popular back in the day when the whole LAMP stack was a big thing. You had your MySQL, you had your PHP, Apache. I forget what L stands for. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, it is still widely used though. There, like, if you're using WordPress, it's very highly likely that you're using MySQL, and it just so happens that half the world's internet runs on WordPress, right? So
Yes. Yeah. Good.
yeah, so MySQL is cool. It's not as feature heavy as Postgres. You can still scale MySQL. I've done that at work a couple of times, but Postgres is much simpler to work with, much easier, much more modern to work with. And for complex queries, performance of MySQL can get a little slower than Postgres. It's not offendingly small. You won't have like your whole application slow down because of it, but you know,
Correct. And let me take the lamp to the L he just missed. The L stands in the stack for Linux. So
ah,
yeah.
mm,
So yeah,
there you
there you
go.
go. So yeah, MySQL. So in conclusion, MySQL is just like Postgres, but a little less performant than that when it comes to complex queries and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Again, if Postgres works for you, MySQL should also work for you. If
works for you.
MySQL works for you, Postgres probably also works for you.
Correct.
It's just like the whole extensions thing. If you love them, then you know. The next option we have here is SQLite.
It is the best option out there if you want to work with the DBs, if you want to work with the persistent data, right? It is like an embedded relational database management system. It literally just creates a file for you with an extension called DB, which is like really, really small in size, and yet it handles all the transactions perfectly fine, end to end. And you do not need any server to run this. No Docker containers needed.
Yeah.
You don't have to install it in your architectures. Nothing. You just need a file, and that's it. That's SQLite for you.
Yeah, it's amazing how it works. It's one of those pieces of software which you wouldn't believe exists, right? Like SQLite is like really, it's like a 2 MB software.
Yeah.
It has almost all the features of MySQL. Almost all. Again, take it with a grain of salt. For its size, it has a lot of features, and it runs on like almost every device you can imagine. If you're using iOS, it's probably installed on your phone and you're using it. If you're using Android, Chrome, if your TV probably has a SQLite database running on it.
Correct.
One of the more interesting things is Django allows you to use multiple databases for separate tables. So what you can do is you can say, when I'm developing the software, please use SQLite. But when I'm running it in production, when I'm running it on servers, and when I need all the fancy features and scalability, not that SQLite is not scalable. Like if you have a couple of million rows, SQLite is fine, no complaints. But if you're on local, it's like, why run Postgres on your computer, eat up that memory, and etc. etc. So you can use SQLite with Django during locally building the site, and then use Postgres when you're in production, essentially.
Right. As you said, the Django, as soon as you start a Django application, it comes up with this default configuration of SQLite. Because again, it do not need server. It does not. Django does not automatically have to create your own Postgres or run an MySQL out there. It does not even ask you for that configuration. It just gives you the right to connect to any of the databases once you have that up and running. But by default, it comes with SQLite, and it's awesome while you're developing stuff.
Cool. So I think for database, we'll use both SQLite and Postgres. SQLite for developing and Postgres
for the production.
I think we also have a section for component libraries. We don't need to dwell on this too long. You can just quickly summarize it. Tailwind is an awesome CSS library that you can use to build your own UI. It's really, really, really flexible and awesome to work with as well, just so happens. Mantime is also like a set of components that are set of React components that you can use to build your app. It has buttons, it has drop downs, it has date pickers, everything. You just put in one line and you'll get that component there. But the visual design, not a big fan of it. It looks a little Mantime-like, for the lack of a better word. I think Chakra looks good, but the previous version of Chakra, version 2, I think, did not have good performance. Abhishek and I, we've tried to build things with it. We ran into massive performance roadblocks. But Chakra 3 fixes that performance problems, I think, but it's not complete anymore. Like it doesn't have too many components.
Right. Big fans of how the components look and feel like, and visual representations of the buttons. Like while you're loading stuff, there is this, all the configurations you can do in the button itself, shows you loading while you click on a button, everything. But yes, we have already worked on it in the past, and I'm not really a big fan of the performance, yes.
Yeah. And material is like,
let's not talk about material.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So overused. So our idea is we'll be inspired by Chakra, but we'll build the components ourselves in Tailwind. We'll build the whole experience ourselves, and maybe look at the Chakra's documentation every once in a while to get a feel for how it works.
Yeah.
We are also using GitHub to manage the whole project. We're using a monorepo structure. We've set it up, so let's maybe take a quick look at it. Again, not going into any sort of detail. We are using a repo. Like you can find this on this URL, by the way. We'll put it in the description somewhere. We have a backend directory, a frontend directory. I'll go to backend. Like we said, it's a Django project which uses UV as its project manager. It's a really UV is essentially like pip if you use pip or npm, but it's really freaking fast. It has so many more nice features. I think I'm not sure if you've installed everything, but yeah, we'll run this project and show you in another video or something. But yeah,
correct. And for those of you who are wondering that how exactly we have created this application, we already have created videos on how to do that, both the front ends and the back ends with the proper package manager. So check that out.
Yeah. The front end is using Next.js, and I think it uses PNPM.
Correct. It uses PNPM. It has the inbuilt support for Tailwind. It's just a dependency. and the TypeScript. Yeah.
Yeah, and TypeScript. Yes, yeah. PMPM is fast as well. NPM is compared to NPM, it's a little bit faster. Yeah, I think that that's about all there is to show in
Yep.
the GitHub repository today.
Great.
There's also a task file which lets us quickly run commands everywhere. We can cover this in another video as well, like in all nice tooling we found or something.
Right.
But yeah, that about wraps up the video, I think, for us. It's already gone longer than we wanted it to. Hope you learned something, and yeah, maybe drop a subscribe or something.
Yeah.
Want the number
And-
going up.
And one thing we can assure you that, I mean, this is not a subscriber call, but if you follow our videos in the future, subscribe us or not, but if you follow us, we assure you that you're going to learn something new. I mean, we assure that we will, and so will you. So yeah, this wraps up another video from Forloop, and
See
anything
you
to
in
add?
episode 2, I think.
Yeah, see you in episode 2.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Stay hydrated, guys. Bye.